Hey students, how you doing? Welcome back to Life Science. We're going to talk about Unit 3, Chapter 3 on cells. And now we're going to talk about Lesson 2. So this is the second lesson in Chapter 3 on cells. We're going to talk about specific general cell structure. We're going to study a couple different types of cells this year, animal and plant cell. I'm going to give you an overall view today of what it means or what the different parts of a cell structure are. So now remember, I shared in last time's lesson that cells are the basic smallest unit or smallest block of living things, but there are smaller things within the cell that make the cell go. So the cell has to have these things in order to be that block for living things. So we're going to talk about those different structures within a cell today. So this is what a cell looks like under a microscope. This is a unicellular organism, and you'll see these different structures that are in it. This looks like almost like a little flower. This is under a microscope. So this is a very, very small, not able to see with the naked eye. Then you see like these little bright, almost orange red spots here, and then the big dark spot right here. All right, so you're seeing these structures. So what you're seeing inside the cell itself are structures, and then outside the cell, you might see this dark band around here, and it almost like it looks like it has hair. Okay, we'll learn what those are later. Those are called cilia. And so then you can even focus on microscope, perhaps on an area like this, and this is what's called a mitochondria. So this is an organelle or a structure within a cell called the mitochondria. And this is a look at even inside the cell, there's structures, and then inside those even small structures or even smaller structures. So we're not going to go all the way into the mitochondria or all so much far into the structures, but today what I want you to learn is the basic structures of most cells. I say most cells, they might be different for other types of cells or more specific cells, but here's general what they'll be. And we're going to talk about each one of these today in turn. But this is the general cell cross section of what an animal cell looks like. Some main things that you'll want to see here is that you see the cell membrane kind of forms the cell shape. Okay, so cell shape is a cell membrane is like a protective barrier in around the cell. Then you have things like a nucleus, and you have a Golgi apparatus, and a mitochondria, and lysosomes, and um, ribosomes, and a nucleus. I think I might have said that already. And all these different things we're going to talk about later. The rough endoplasmic reticulum, different things called vacuoles, which are transport. So we're going to talk about each one of these in turn, and I'll probably come back to the slide to refer to it. Okay, so let's talk about this. So what makes up a cell? What up those smaller structures that are inside the cell are called organelles. Similar to this, it's a similar word to organ, just like you are made up of organs that help your body function, your lungs, your heart, your liver, your pancreas, those types of things that keep your body functioning. Your body is made up of organs, so a cell is made up of smaller structures called organelles, and each of them have a special, unique job. So similar to, say, a doctor has a unique job of prescribing medicine and assessing your health. Might be a specialized doctor that deals with maybe your lung capacity, or a specialized doctor that deals with if you have a certain problem or disease, or you may have someone that helps you get better if you've hurt your knee or something like that. Or surgeon might specialize in knee surgery, called an orthopedic surgeon. So a doctor has a specific job in our world. Okay, so think of a city as a cell, and inside that city are specific jobs. Other types of specific jobs within a city or a town would be a plumber or a construction worker or a mailman, or someone that has a very specific job that does something that serves you and the city to make the city run. Here is a picture of the former governor of New Mexico, and she oversees the government, and the government sets the laws. The government sets funds different things for road and for the police and the U.S. Postal Service and different types of services that help you and your family have a proper and maybe productive life in the city and the state and even the town that you live in. Where would we be at if the trash company didn't come by and pick up our trash or our recyclables, right? That's an important job. If we were responsible for all of our trash or no one came and got our trash, we would have to deal with it, okay, in that way. And it probably wouldn't be done as well as maybe a trash company would do. And maybe taking the trash to one central location called a landfill. And so that is managed by the government and it's managed by a trash company. So just like each one of these jobs here, and there are many, many, many other jobs that make a city go. These are just four that I chose. They help the city function properly. So I want you to think of a cell is like a city that has specific jobs in it, specific roles that each organelle plays. So let's talk about those organelles for a moment. So the first one is called the cell membrane. Okay, the cell membrane. So if we go back to our picture here, here's the cell membrane. In a plant cell, that's called the cell wall. The cell membrane is forms its structures, kind of like the skin of the cell. It keeps everything contained within it. Okay. And it also is what's called a semi-permeable barrier, meaning that like a wall, you can't walk through a wall, but you can get past that wall if you can open the door. And you can open the door if that door is locked, if you have a key or the combination to get through that door. So um, a um, a cell membrane has a code, and we'll learn about this a little bit later. It has a specific chemical code that allows things, other molecules in the cell, and specific code that allows other molecules out of the cell. So it allows certain chemicals in and out of the cell so the cell can do functions and specific things that the cell needs to do. So it's called a semi-permeable, meaning some things can pass through and others can't. It protects it and it keeps it together. Okay, the ribosomes. Now, our ribosomes have a specific function in the cell, and they make proteins. You can think of it going to a smoothie place and getting a little protein shake. Okay, so proteins are made in the cell. So when we have food that we eat, and those proteins are processed inside the cell by what are called these little dots right here called ribosomes. Now, there are several ribosomes within there. They might be in several places on the cell. Specifically, one of their jobs is to sit on the endoplasmic reticulum. It's called the rough ER. It's rough because it has these little bumps on it of protein making ribosomes. Okay, so that's what ribosomes do is they make proteins inside the cell. Okay, and then since we just talked about the ER, let's go ahead and talk about that. So as the proteins, one of the things that the ER does is as the proteins live and the ribosomes are making proteins near the endoplasmic reticulum, the ER, that ER transports those proteins to different parts of the cell. So you can think of the ER as a roadway or a railway around the cell. That's one thing that it might do. Excuse me. All right. Let me go back up here. Where was I? There we go. Okay. So we have the endoplasmic reticulum. The ER kind of transports proteins. It does other things, but for right now, just know that the ER transports proteins around the cell. Now we have two other things I'm going to talk in turn: the vacuoles, which are storage bins, and lysosomes, which are like a recycling center. Okay, so the vacuoles move things in and out of the cell. They store food, they store waste, and they will exit and enter the cell as needed. So vacuoles, which would be these on our right here, maybe these teal blue structures, may take waste out of the cell, or they may take things around to other, they may store something. So something like a food container stores things for you, but also a trash can stores something as well. So vacuoles have a multi-purpose to them. They do more than one purpose. So you can think of it as a storage either for food for later or for trash or waste products, and they may transport them out of the cell. So they have the code. Specific types of vacuoles will have a code to get in and out of the cell and pass through the cell membrane. And then the lysosomes are like the recycling center. So as cells use chemistry and the chemical reactions happen, there might be some products that are left unused or used up. And so what the lysosomes do And the lysosome here is represented by this kind of magenta purplish circle. They reuse materials. So just like you might reuse materials, you might recycle something and reuse something again. Or you might send it off to a recycling center, maybe some old paper or cardboard boxes, and it gets recycled and reused to make another cardboard box. That's what lysosomes do. They reuse things. They're called the recyclers of the cell. So we got the cell membrane, the door, lysosomes. They make proteins, vacuoles or storage bins. Lysosomes are recycling center. Endoplasmic reticulum is the transport center. Okay, so you're kind of noticing that these kind of all relate to a city. There's some city functions here. Okay, at a wall and at a door into a house. A smoothie king might be a place you might eat at. Storage help you store your food. Recycling center is important, and as the railways or the roadways. So a couple more we're going to talk about is the mitochondria. Now, the mitochondria, one thing is that's the energy plant. That's where the energy of the cell and the energy of your body gets to do what it normally does. All of this adds up. So the mitochondria are their energy. They're the ones taking the proteins, and particularly the food, the carbohydrates, those organic compounds we learned about earlier. And there are several mitochondria in the cell. So if we talk about one mitochondrion, that's on is the singular, and mitochondria are several mitochondria. They are producing, they're using sugar and other products to make what is called ATP, to make energy, converting that food, that converting those organic molecules and the organic compounds we learned a few lessons ago, and they make that into energy for the cell, not only to do its function, but to help your body, particularly you or an animal or a plant, to do its function. So the mitochondria is the energy plant of the cell. Next one is called the Golgi apparatus. I want you to think of the Golgi apparatus as the Amazon Prime truck that might show up at your house, or the mail carrier, or the post, depending on from what country, maybe from what you might call that. It carries different products, different chemicals around the cell. So it's similar in that to the ER, that it transports things, but the Golgi apparatus moves things around the cell. And then I believe the last one we're going to talk about is the main thing that's the main space in the cell is called cytoplasm. Cyto, anytime you see the word cyto, it means cell. Cyto and plasm is a liquid. So this is a fluid that's in the cell that keeps the cell kind of from collapsing on itself. So all the space that you see here in this picture, kind of this bluish color right here, all this space right here, that's cytoplasm. That's what kind of keeps it puffed up. So you can think of maybe the cell is a balloon. Okay, it's another way to think of it. And the water in the balloon is the cytoplasm, and maybe you put some particles inside the balloon. That's what what a cell might represent, if you want to think of it that way, and that's helpful for you. So those are some things about the cell I wanted you to know about. Now, three more things here. We're talking specifically about the control center. Now, the nucleus is the control center. It's the thing that is sending out in a chemical format with chemical signals instructions to all the other organelles. So here's it looks like an eye. And so the nucleus is sending out information in the chemical form. It's not actually talking, but it sends out chemical signals to the different other organelles, the mitochondria, the Golgi apparatus, the smooth ER, which we haven't talked about yet, the lysosomes, the ribosomes, all those different things are receiving information from the nucleus. Okay, and the nucleus has its own protective membrane similar to the cell membrane, so it has something similar. And inside that nucleus are the chromosomes, and the chromosomes are the chemical nucleic acids. Remember we talked about nucleic acids, DNA and RNA. That's where DNA and RNA that make the code that help build you and build the cells and code for each cell to instruct it what to do. So the nucleus is considered the control center of the cell. Now you can think of it as a city, but here's another way to think of it. This great former biology teacher and now book author and illustrator. Her pen name is called Patrice the Biologist. I would encourage you to go purchase her books or find her website. Just some really, really helpful, funny ways of understanding biology, not just the cell, but most living things. She has a wonderful way of doing that. And so here's the nucleus saying, everybody do what I say. It's kind of sending out those instructions. And then the mitochondria is going, haha, no, we do whatever we want. And then the lysosomes, remember, the lysosomes are the recyclers, and everything I touch, it destroys. Okay, it's just trying to recycle things. And the vacuole says, I feel quite filled, because it's always getting filled up with some product, whether it be food or waste product. And the Golgi apparatus, because it's moving things all the way around, it's transporting, just like your Amazon Prime driver is making all those deliveries to all those houses every single day. They need a break. Okay, and then the ER, the endoplasmic reticulum. You guys stay quiet. I have so much work to do. Okay, so these are just some funny things to kind of understand how the cell might work. So that's going to be our last of our lesson for today. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll see you in a class soon. Bye bye.